My stepchildren laughed. You can't buy respect with cash. So I took back everything bought with mine. Their laptops, their subscriptions, their fridge stocked with favorites. By evening, they were arguing over who gets the last can of soup. Respect costs nothing until it's gone. I met Kelly at a car wash in the dead of October. She was standing under the overhang with her 2 teenagers, Jason and Hannah, huddled around an empty gas can like it might magically fill itself. Rain came down in slanted lines, sharp and indifferent. She wore a denim jacket too thin for the season and smiled at me like she knew how stupid it looked. I offered her a ride. That ride turned into dinner. Dinner turned into weekends. Eventually, I just didn't leave. She never asked me to stay. But she didn't ask me to go either. The house was falling apart. Cracked siding, broken gutters, rust spreading like bruises over the water heater. A basement that smelled like mildew and broken promises. I went to the hardware store one weekend and came back with lumber, paint, a promise to make it better. I thought if I build it strong enough, maybe they'll lean on it. Maybe they'll lean on me. So I worked. I fixed the porch, laid tile in the bathroom, patched the roof after a storm that left branches like knives through the shingles. I paid for groceries, internet, Jason's braces. Hannah wanted a summer trip with her friends to California. I bought the tickets. Kelly thanked me with a tired kiss on the cheek, like tipping a cab driver. No one called me Dad. Not once. But I kept showing up like one. I told myself respect would follow presence. That patience would be seen. It never was. Jason referred to me as Mom's boyfriend, even after 5 years. Even after I taught him how to change a tire on the roadside at midnight. Hannah once introduced me to her friends as the guy who lives with us. Even the dog stopped waiting by the door for me. I fed him, walked him, took him to the vet. But his tail wagged harder for Kelly. He'd sit at her feet and whine when she left the room. Me he tolerated. Most nights I went to bed before the others. Not out of habit but necessity. There was no place for me at the table. The chairs were filled. The air thick with stories I wasn't invited into. They'd laugh. Loud, inside jokes. Jason doing impressions of someone at school. Hannah showing TikToks. Kelly listening with that half-smile that used to be mine. I'd lie in bed, door closed, listening to dinner happen without me. Forks clinking, glasses set down, laughter, like I was renting a room in a life I helped build. They never said it directly, but the message was there. In the way they waited for Kelly to repeat my instructions before they listened. In the way Jason would look at me when I asked him to mow the lawn, then turn to his mom for confirmation. In how Hannah would roll her eyes and sigh when I reminded her to be home by curfew. I was background noise, static. Kelly never corrected them. Never said, listen to him. Never said, he's earned his place here. Her silence was the deepest cut of all. Not loud, not cruel. Just empty. A vacuum where loyalty should live. I began to notice it more over time. The way she deferred. The way she let them rewrite the hierarchy of our house until I was beneath it. A man who built the frame but wasn't allowed inside. Holidays were the worst. I bought the tree, decorated it, drove through snowstorms to get the perfect gifts. I wrapped Jason's Xbox, the same one he said Dad was going to get him but forgot. I bought Hannah the limited edition shoes she sobbed about missing online. I watched them tear the paper open, squeal, thank Kelly. Not me. And when her ex showed up, late and disheveled, holding envelopes with cash he borrowed from someone else, they lit up, called him Dad, hugged him like a war hero returned. He stayed 20 minutes. I stayed through the snow, through the bills, through the nights when Kelly cried because she didn't know how she'd afford Hannah's textbooks. And I covered it. Quietly. I thought maybe love was like plumbing, invisible when it works. That if I kept the pipes warm and the lights on, they'd see the shape of me in the silence. But silence became erasure. They never asked where the money came from, or how the fridge stayed full, or why the lights always worked. I was the background hum of their comfort, necessary but never acknowledged. Even when Jason cracked his phone screen and came to me instead of Kelly, he said, Can you fix it or something? Not thanks. Not, I know you're always there. Just fix it. The night that sealed it came after a late shift. I walked in, exhausted, boots still wet from the snow. They were watching a movie on the couch. My spot was taken by a laundry basket. No one looked up. I stood in the doorway for a full minute, dripping, waiting, nothing. Finally, Kelly said, "Can you toss those towels in the dryer?" That was it. Not, "You okay?" Not, "Welcome home." Just a job. Another task. I carried the basket downstairs, sat on the basement steps while the washer hummed. I looked around at the walls I'd insulated, the shelves I'd built, the smell of cedar I used to love. It didn't feel like mine anymore. It felt like someone else's house, someone else's family. I used to believe that building something made you belong to it, that if you gave enough, you became undeniable. But some people don't want to see you. Some people would rather starve than acknowledge who feeds them. So I stayed quiet, kept fixing what broke, kept paying what was due. And in every silence that followed, I disappeared a little more, until I wasn't even background noise, just absence in advance. It happened while I was fixing the dishwasher. A Thursday afternoon, sunlight bending through the kitchen blinds, catching the dust I hadn't yet wiped down. I had my hands elbow-deep in the lower rack, trying to figure out why the damn thing wouldn't drain. Behind me, just around the corner in the living room, Jason's voice cut through. "You can't buy respect with cash." Hannah laughed, that cruel kind of laugh, tight and knowing. "Let him keep paying. He's not family anyway." I didn't move. Their voices carried like they wanted me to hear. Or maybe they didn't care anymore. Either way, it was done. And then came the worst part. Kelly was there. I heard her laugh too. Light, breathy, like someone laughing to keep the peace. No words, no correction, just silence padded in cowardice. My hands gripped the metal rack until my knuckles turned white. I stood up slowly, my body stiff from kneeling on cold tile, and walked to the hallway just far enough to see them without being seen. Jason on the couch, Hannah curled beside him, and Kelly in the armchair, smiling. She looked tired but not surprised, like this had become normal, like she'd accepted my erasure. I went back into the kitchen. The water under the dishwasher pooled at my feet. The wrench slipped from my hand and clanged on the tile. I didn't pick it up. That night, after the dishes were done and the laughter returned to the living room, I sat alone in the garage. The walls were lined with tools I bought, the shelves packed with bins I organized. A life I built so they could live comfortably while pretending I didn't exist. I poured a drink, bourbon, neat, and stared at the concrete until the silence thickened into something solid. Then I stood up and started making calls. One by one, I logged into every account that bore my name. Netflix, Hulu, Spotify, Uber Eats, Amazon Prime. Cancelled. I moved to the school payment portal, 2 clicks, and Hannah's next semester vanished. Jason's car insurance, gone. Their phone plans, their game subscriptions, the cloud storage they never thought about until it vanished. I cancelled it all. Then I boxed it up. Headphones, tablets, consoles, every piece of tech I had paid for, I unplugged and packed. The new sneakers Jason had barely worn, the jacket Hannah got for Christmas, the Bluetooth speaker Kelly used for wine nights. I cleared shelves. Every item bought with my money went into boxes, neat and unceremonious. I wrote a note and taped it to the fridge. If I'm not family, then neither are the comforts I paid for. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't want to. I wanted to hear it. The silence unraveling into discomfort. The sudden absence of things they never had to earn. The morning came like a slow bruise. First, nothing. A few mutters. Jason asking why his phone had no service. Hannah yelling about the Wi-Fi. Then Kelly's voice, low, confused, then sharp. "Michael!" I didn't answer. Instead, I walked outside and sat on the porch with a cup of coffee. Cold air cut through my sleeves, but it felt cleaner than the air inside. I listened to them scramble. Cabinets opened and shut. Doors slammed. Then footsteps, Kelly's fast and clipped. She opened the screen door, eyes wide, the note in her hand. What is this? I took a sip of coffee. I meant every word. She stood there for a second, mouth open, but no sound came. Her hands were shaking. The paper trembled between her fingers. You're overreacting, she said finally. They're kids. They don't mean what they say. They meant it, I said. And so did you when you said nothing. It was a joke. No, a joke is harmless. That was a verdict, and you confirmed it. They're just teenagers. You know how they get. Disrespectful. Arrogant. No, I said, standing now. I know how they've been raised. I know what your silence teaches them. And I know what my labor bought. If I'm not family, I'm not funding it. Her mouth tightened. She looked past me into the yard, as if the grass might offer her a script. You're punishing them. No, I said quietly. I'm teaching them the cost of contempt. She didn't follow me back inside. The day unfolded in fractures. Jason stormed around, slamming drawers. Hannah sat on the stairs with her laptop, refreshing a dead screen. Kelly made phone calls, long ones, to customer service lines she didn't recognize. But the accounts were in my name. The bills, the services, the passwords. All mine. By dinner, the fridge was half empty. The microwave blinked in error. Hannah ate cereal with bottled water because the milk had expired. Jason sat in silence, staring at his dead phone like it had betrayed him. Kelly tried to act normal. She set the table, made pasta. I didn't join them. I sat in the garage with the boxes, sipping bourbon again, listening to the muffled voices. Hannah cried at one point. Jason cursed. Kelly tried to soothe them, but her voice had no authority. Not without mine. Took 2 days before she came to me. I was out front, pruning the shrubs. She stood on the steps, arms crossed against the cold. Can we talk? I didn't look up. We can speak. I don't know if we can talk. She hesitated, then came closer. They're scared, she said. Jason's friends can't reach him. Hannah's laptop won't turn on. You've cut them off from everything. Not everything, I said. They still have you, and their real dad. Her face twisted. You know he won't help. Then maybe you should have thought about who did. She sat on the porch step. For the first time in years, she looked small, tired. She rubbed her hands together, then looked up at me. I didn't realize how much you carried. I kept pruning. I have receipts, I said. If you'd like, I can show you. Groceries, tuition, cell plans, birthdays. Every gift they thanked you for, my card. Every ride they got to school, my gas. The lights they leave on, the water they waste, the heat that keeps them warm. I paid for all of it. Quietly, because I thought one day they'd see. That maybe you'd tell them. That respect would come with time. Kelly wiped at her eyes. I'm sorry. I don't need sorry, I said. I needed a partner. She stood, slowly, and walked back inside. The boxes stayed in the garage, unopened. No one dared to touch them. That night, the house was quiet in a new way. Not indifference, not casual dismissal, but fear. The kind that comes when the ground shifts and you realize you've never learned how to stand on your own. Hannah came to my door around midnight, knocked gently. Can I talk to you? I opened it. She looked small, wrapped in a hoodie, her eyes red. I didn't mean what I said. You said I'm not family. I didn't mean it, she said, voice cracking. I was trying to be funny. Cool. I didn't think it mattered. I looked at her for a long time. You think it's cool to mock the man who pays for your future? I didn't see it like that. No, I said. You didn't see me at all. She nodded. A tear slid down her cheek. I'm sorry. I closed the door gently. Apologies are wind. They rattle the windows but change nothing unless followed by work. I needed work, not words. And maybe, just maybe, they were about to learn what work looked like without a man in the shadows making life easier. Because this was the first silence they had earned. And it cost them everything I used to give for free. By the third morning, the house was a carcass. Still standing, but empty where it mattered. The television was dark. The router gone. The Xbox, the Bluetooth speakers, the laptops, the headphones, the fridge's smart screen, all silent. The only sound was the hum of the furnace, and even that felt distant, like a machine muttering to itself in a language no one cared to understand. Jason stormed through rooms like a tenant who'd discovered the utilities had been shut off mid-lease. He kicked a chair, screamed into his phone when it wouldn't connect, cursed at the microwave when it flashed its useless clock. "Why isn't anything working?" he yelled, pacing the kitchen. "I swear to God. This is so F*** edition." Kelly was on hold with a customer service line. Again. I passed her the bill for the electric, my name across the top. She stared at it for a long time. That was the first time I saw it settle in her. How deep my roots were in this house. How completely I'd woven myself into its comfort. Hannah opened the pantry, slammed it shut, then opened it again like food might magically reappear. "There's nothing to eat," she snapped. "Then cook something," I said without looking up. "With what? We don't even have eggs." I handed her $20. The grocery store's 3 blocks down. She stared at the bill like it was a personal insult. Jason tried to play music on his phone. He tapped the screen, frowned, tapped again. "What happened to Spotify?" he barked. "Where's my playlist?" "Cancelled," I said. "What?" "I'm not paying for it anymore." His face twisted, but he didn't say anything. Not then. He just walked to the hallway and shouted at the walls the way people shout at a system they can't control. I heard him mutter something about how unfair it was. How I was being petty. Petty. That word sat with me longer than it should have. As if drawing a line after years of sacrifice was childish. As if reclaiming dignity was some juvenile tantrum. Kelly finally cornered me in the laundry room. "This isn't sustainable," she said. Her voice low, shaky. "You can't just cut everything off." "I can," I said. And I did. They're kids. They're old enough to call me a wallet. Old enough to mock the man who pays their way. They're not too young to learn what it costs when you burn bridges. They didn't mean it. They did, I said. But whether they meant it or not, they believed they'd never pay for it. That they could insult me, dismiss me, and I'd still fill the fridge. Her eyes glistened. "They're scared." Good. She didn't expect that. I looked at her hard. I want them to be scared. I want them to feel what it's like to watch the world go cold because the man they ignored finally listened. I want them to sit in silence and hear themselves. Kelly took a step back. Her lips trembled. "That's cruel." "No," I said. "It's justice. It's a correction. It's the price of silence, yours especially." She blinked. "My silence." I handed her another receipt, Jason's school fund, Hannah's dentist bill, the oil change she'd scheduled and forgotten about, my signature every line. "You let them erase me," I said. "And you watched. You didn't stop them. You didn't tell them I mattered. You just stood there and smiled while they laughed at me." "I didn't laugh," she whispered. "You didn't speak." She left the room without answering. That night, they tried to order food. Jason came into the living room with a DoorDash app frozen on checkout. "It won't work. Says payment declined." I didn't look up. I deleted the account. "What the hell, man?" Jason snapped. "I'm hungry." "Then cook." He turned to Kelly. "Mom." She didn't answer. "You've got a job," he said louder now. "Why aren't you helping?" Kelly looked at him like he'd struck her. "I make enough for groceries. Not for everything else." "What does that even mean?" "It means," I said, standing now, "that for years I made enough for all of you. Quietly, while you spat at my feet. That time's over." Hannah muttered, "This is abuse." I laughed, loud, bitter. "No. Abuse is what you've done, taking without thanks. Sneering at the man who held your lives together. You were happy to be kept, until the keeper asked to be seen." No one spoke. I walked out onto the porch, sat under the cold stars, and sipped the same bourbon I'd been drinking since this started. Inside, the lights were dimmer, quieter. The walls didn't echo anymore, they absorbed. The next day, Jason tried to log into his school portal. Locked out. "Is this a joke?" he shouted. "My tuition is overdue. There's a hold on my account." He ran into the kitchen, phone in hand. "They sent me a warning. I need to pay or I'm dropped." Kelly sat at the table, silent. Jason turned to me. "You're just going to let that happen?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because you said I wasn't your family. And you meant it. So now you're someone else's responsibility." He threw the phone. It hit the wall and shattered. Hannah screamed. Kelly flinched. I picked up the pieces, handed them back to him without a word. He snatched them and stormed upstairs. Hannah followed, sobbing. Kelly looked at me, broken. "You're really doing this?" "I'm not doing anything," I said. "I stopped doing everything." We sat in silence for hours. At some point, she began to cry. "I didn't think it was this much. I didn't know you carried this much." "That's the problem," I said. "You didn't care to know." That evening, I opened a drawer and pulled out a folder. Years of statements, printouts, bank transfers, a litany of proof. I laid them out on the table one by one. She didn't stop me, just watched. Jason's tuition, 12 grand each semester. Hannah's trip to California, flights, hotel, spending cash. The car repairs, the birthday parties, the holiday feasts, thousands upon thousands of dollars. All without thanks. "I'm done," I said. Kelly nodded. "I see that now." "Do you?" I asked. "Or are you just scared too?" "I'm both," she whispered. And that was the closest we'd come to honesty in months. For the next few days, the house moved like a hospital after visiting hours. Sterile. Hushed. Jason barely left his room. Hannah started washing dishes without being asked. Kelly cooked dinner alone, plates smaller, portions measured. The air grew thick with restraint. I'd find lights off in rooms that used to be left blazing. The thermostat lower. Doors closed. Screens blank. They were learning. Not just about money. About consequence. About what happens when the man who built the comfort stops protecting them from themselves. One night, Jason knocked on my door. "I need to talk." I opened it. He looked tired. Unshaven. Eyes red. "I've been an ass," he said. "We all have." I said nothing. He stepped into the room. "I didn't realize it. How much you did. How much we depended on you. And I'm sorry." I looked at him for a long time. "You ever apologized before?" He shook his head. "Then let it sit," I said. "Don't fill it with more words. Just let the apology hang there, uncomfortable. Let it dig." He nodded slowly and left. That was the first real apology I'd heard. From any of them. It wasn't enough. But it was something. A crack in the ice. The next morning, the kitchen was clean. Coffee already made. A note beside it in Hannah's handwriting. "Thank you." I drank in silence. Not forgiveness, but recognition. And for the first time in weeks, I let myself hope. Not for change, but for clarity. Because sometimes it takes the weight of silence to make people hear. And I had carried that silence long enough. I moved out on a Monday. Quietly. No shouting. No spectacle. Just a man packing the last of his shirts into a suitcase that no one helped him carry. The apartment I found was small. One bedroom. One chair. A table barely wide enough for a plate and a drink. But it was mine. The rent was low, the windows drafty, the view uninspired. But the silence, it was clean. Not the tense, acidic quiet of a house that resents you. This was different. This silence was absence, not punishment. I breathed it in like oxygen. The first night alone, I didn't sleep much. Not because I missed them, but because I didn't know what to do with the emptiness that wasn't filled with need. No one asked where the phone charger was. No one called my name. No one knocked. And nothing broke. I woke up at 6 a.m. Anyway, habit. I sat at the table and drank coffee I didn't have to share, ate toast I didn't have to fight for space to make, and read the same news article 3 times because I wasn't sure how to just sit. There were no text messages, no missed calls, no guilt-tripped voicemails from Kelly, just air and time. By the 3rd day, she called. I didn't answer. The 4th, she texted. "I miss you." I stared at it. just stared. Miss me? Or miss what I provided? Miss the man or the shield? The labor? I set the phone down. A week later, a letter came. Not an email. Not a message. A letter. It was from Jason. His handwriting was rushed, uneven. I didn't understand before. I thought you were just trying to control us. I didn't see what you carried. I know it's too late, but I get it now. He didn't ask me to come back. He didn't even say sorry. Just, I get it now. It was the most honest thing he'd ever written. Another letter came. This one from Hannah. You were always there. And I never said thank you. I'm sorry. I was stupid. She had drawn a little flower at the bottom, like she used to in grade school. I kept both letters in the drawer beside my bed. Not because they healed anything, but because they confirmed I wasn't crazy. They saw me now. That mattered. Not enough to go back, but enough to breathe a little easier. Kelly called again. This time I answered. I shouldn't have let them say those things, she said, before anything else. I should have stood up. I know that. I said nothing. Can we talk? She asked. We are. I mean, really talk. Come for dinner. No pressure. Just see the house again. I didn't want to go, but I did. Out of curiosity. Out of the need to see the ruins. The house looked the same, but the energy had shifted. The silence wasn't just mine anymore. It belonged to everyone now. Jason was thinner, tired. His eyes didn't hold the smugness they used to. He shook my hand when he opened the door. Hannah hugged me. Just once. Quick. But it was real. Dinner was simple. Spaghetti. Store-brand breadsticks. No candles, no music. Kelly looked at me like someone trying to read a closed book. I started paying the bills, she said. It's hard. I nodded. Jason said, I'm working weekends. At the garage near school. I nodded again. Hannah added, I'm learning how to cook. I didn't ask for proof. The breadsticks were enough. We ate in silence. But this time it wasn't cold. It wasn't hostile. It was heavy. Weighted with things unsaid. After the plates were cleared, I stood. I'm not coming back. Kelly looked down. I figured. You waited too long to choose me. You let them build a world where I didn't belong. And I lived in it anyway. That's over now. Jason swallowed hard. I don't hate you, I said. Any of you. But I won't be your foundation anymore. I won't hold up a house that resents me while enjoying the heat I pay for. Hannah's eyes brimmed. We didn't know. You did, I said. You just didn't care to look. Kelly tried to speak, but I raised a hand. I needed a family, not an audience, not dependents. Family, people who saw me, who respected me. I gave you years, and when I asked for a voice, you gave me silence. I stepped toward the door. Jason said, I'll pay you back, someday. I paused. You don't have to, but I want to. That's different, I said. And better. Outside, the air was cold again. Not biting, but clear. I walked to my car without looking back. Back in the apartment, I poured a drink and read the letters again. Jason's confession. Hannah's apology. I set them beside the bourbon and stared out the window. The building across the street had a broken neon sign. The corner bulb flickered. I watched it blink, on and off, over and over. A rhythm I didn't understand. They'd call again. Maybe ask for help. Maybe want to meet. I didn't know what I'd say, but I knew what I wouldn't do. I wouldn't go back to being invisible. Because this is what silence costs. The man who once gave everything, now gives nothing. And it's earned. Not out of spite, but out of self-preservation. They taught me to live without them. So now I ask you, if you'd been erased from your own home, would you still pay the mortgage on your absence? Or would you finally ask, what's the cost of being seen too late?